The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a terrific gentleman who came from Virginia, now living in New York City. He's a writer, trainer, motivational speaker, and an experienced songwriter. He came from a corporate executive background. He was a CEO of Avon. He was also worked Scholastic Achievement. He was a former Fortune 500 vice president, also for Lever Brothers, became the world's first electronic journalist covering events online. And I think we're going to learn a lot from this wonderful gentleman. He's the first to report the Democrat and Republican conventions, along with the Oscars by computer. He also wrote some music as well, too. 11 of them hit the Billboard charts, and 4 went to number ones that make you want to go dancing. And also the author of the state anthem. We're going to talk about that. And also has a great contribution and a cause as well, too. So live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plush Studios in New York City, and yes, I see you at Common Ground, ladies and gentlemen, writer, trainer, motivational speaker, and songwriter, Mike Greenlee. Mike, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm delighted to be here. I just have to be accurate and say I wasn't CEO of Avon. I was the youngest VP they'd ever had, but I was just a VP, but I was a marketing communications VP, and I was going to quit to become a full-time psychotherapist. I'd been receiving training for that, and my parents said, "Oh no, young man, we want our son to be a Fortune 500 VP." So I stayed before I ended up leaving and doing my own thing.
I see. Got that. So it's good to clarify that. And like I said, you know, you're a Fortune 500 VP for Avon, Lever Brothers, Scholastic, as well as being the world's first electronic journalist covering numerous events. And you're also writer, trainer, motivational speaker, songwriter. And before we get to all that, I guess just tell us how you first got started.
Gosh. Well, I took a Greyhound bus from Beaufort, South Carolina, actually, which is where I grew up, thinking that they would hire me to be a playwright in New York City because I love the theater, but it don't work that way. So I realized I had to get a job, a regular job, if I wanted to even buy a theater ticket. So I went through some headhunters, worked at Scholastic, which was a great place. That was the country's #1 educational publisher. Then I went to Lever Brothers and started getting my master's in marketing and international marketing at night, which took 6 years. Wow. But I wanted to make more money than you can make in children's book publishing. Mm-hmm. So at Lever Brothers, I started as a writer, but then got promoted into brand management. And that's where you really learn about marketing, because one detergent is mostly like another, and it's marketing that makes the biggest difference. But it was like, if you know the Klingons in Star Trek, it was like that, a very militaristic race. And I'm a Southern gentleman, brought up in Beaufort. So I ended up leaving and followed a friend who went to Avon, which was a great thing. And at that time, it was the world's #1 beauty company and #1 direct selling company. And I just rose through the ranks. At one point, I was in charge of creating 300 new products a year, which is where you really learn a lot about marketing. Then I was in charge of the brochure, where you get to do split runs and see which approach sells more lipstick. And then I was in charge of meetings and events, so I had to learn to overcome my own stage fright. And now I coach other executives. I write their speeches, their PowerPoints, and then coach them. But also along the way, we used to build business meetings back then used to have a lot more theme songs. Mm-hmm. So I would be writing theme songs for the Avon meetings, and I found out I was doing, it seemed to me, a better job than the agency person. And ultimately, I just got the courage. It was the bravest thing I'd ever done to leave corporate life and just start doing my own thing. And that's how I ended up becoming planet Earth's first interactive electronic journalist, because I would take my little tiny computer and go to computer shows. I was there when Steve Jobs launched the Macintosh. And what happens is, back then, I would write, this was a new thing. So I would write a report. I was at the Oscars, for example, when Steven Spielberg won for E.T., and a reader in Japan asked real time, is there going to be a sequel? So I was able to get that. That's why it's interactive journalism. Mm-hmm. Ask Mr. Spielberg the question and then report back to the reader in Japan.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
Yeah, and
I'm used to it, but it was a big deal back then.
And I can imagine you typing on there, E.T. phone home. And do you suppose E.T. would have intercepted and sent it to Japan?
Right.
Oh, my gosh. So what was that one moment that precisely influenced you, that you were going from corporate over to songwriting and reporting? What was that one moment that says, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Well, I had read a book. There were 2 books that really changed my life. One was by Gail Sheehy, a journalist at New York Magazine. It was, what was it called? Gosh, I'll think of it in a second. But it was about making changes in your life. And I realized that I was at a turning point. And the other book was called The Third Wave by a futurist, very famous guy in his field, Alvin Toffler. And he forecast that we had been thousands in the agrarian age, hundreds of years in the information age. This was back in the 80s, hundreds of years in manufacturing, industrial age. And he was letting the world know, he was one of the first ones, folks, we're on the edge of the information age. And so I read that on a vacation. I came back and I told Avon, by that time I was director or VP, I don't remember, but I said, we've got to learn more about computers. Now, this was a new thing. So they bought me a computer, a clunky Apple II computer, which was state-of-the-art. Mm-hmm. And I started talking to people online and realized when I would be speaking to people in other countries, there are a lot of people out there with great ideas, but what they don't have is my particular gift for words and my training in strategy, marketing strategy. So that's what gave me the courage, was being able to talk to people and realize there are a lot of people out there. I've got a communication skill that could help them. That's what helped me decide to be brave and leave corporate life and do my own thing.
Mm-hmm. And what was the program that was used to communicate online to people back then? It sounded like was just amazing in the 80s, using the, the Apple Macintosh or the Conti or whatever it was. And I remember back in the day that they promoted the Lisa. I don't know if you remember that. The Lisa computer. Yes. Oh, my gosh. I mean, I'm just like throwing back myself the days of COBOL, Fortran, Basic being a one-time computer program myself, which I realized I'm better off just pushing buttons and playing with buttons than just writing in code and everything else. So what were the programs that we used back then to communicate?
Well, you have a lot more skill than I do. You know, you talk about your ability to program. All I have is words, and I just use the most. I don't know what the program was. I just knew that there was something built into the Apple II computer, and that's what I used. There was a Tandy Radio Shack computer. I used that. Oh, the name of that book, by the way, I forgot earlier, was Passages by Gail Sheehy. Her point was we all go through passages in life. And I realized I was, based on the book, I was at one of those potential passages. And I either had to decide at that point to stay at Avon and finish my career in corporate life or be brave and leave. And between that and the Third Wave book, I decided, okay, there's a new world coming and it's digital and I want to be part of it. And that's why I started covering the Democratic and Republican conventions and so on, just sending out. I had something called Mike Magazine online, and it was a big deal, and people would be reading about it and interacting with each other. Today, it's like breathing, but it was new back then.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, we'll talk about some of your ventures as well, too, and what you accomplished in just a minute. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention The Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take The Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And also the classic Macintoshes, Lisas, the Countries, and more. We're here with entrepreneur and also writer, trainer, and motivational speaker and experienced songwriter as well, Mike Greenlee here on the Mike Wagner Show. I mean, we're just trying to pick and choose and, what you do as well, too. So, of course, you being an early online journalist, you cover the Democrat and the Republican conventions. You also cover the Oscars. And what was that like covering the Oscars? And how many people flood you with all kinds of inquiries on your Apple computer back then? What was it like?
Well, because it was so new, when I would you have to get press credentials if you want to go backstage and be in the press room and get to ask Steven Spielberg a question. But when I tried to explain to the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Academy Awards, yes, I'm doing interactive electronic journalism. What? They had no idea what it was. And I had to teach them, yes, there's these things called computers, and they can be portable, and you can talk to people with them. So eventually they gave me the press credential, and there I was backstage next to these established journalists. I don't know if you know the name Rona Barrett, for example, but I remember sitting right next to her. And as I was there, the readers were knowing, gosh, Mike is backstage right now. Because each time somebody would win an Academy Award, they'd come to the press room where I was. And that's what it was. It was interactive. I would write it in right then, and people would write me back from wherever they were. That's the interactive part of it.
Wow, that is something. I mean, I wish I was there. I could just learn from you. I mean, I could take one of those laptops right now, these big things you just carry on your shoulder or whatsoever. So you've been an online journalist, and you also got into some songwriting as well, too. You've had 11 of your songs that charted, and 4 went to number 1. You can tell us about some of your ventures.
Well, once I was brave enough to leave corporate life, because I had been in charge of meetings and events, I started making a living I did some marketing consulting for people because I'm a marketing geek, but a lot of it was and still is writing speeches for people. My tagline is sound like you, only better. So when I do input from an executive, I'll listen with one ear to what does the executive want to convey. Am I hearing clearly what that person wants? But the other is listening on the part of the audience. Is it making sense to me? Is it relevant to me? And between those two ways of listening and my ability to, I'm a great typist. I have no idea about programming, but to capture what it is that they say, then I turn it into a speech or a PowerPoint. And because I had to overcome my own stage fright, which is much more common among executives than people realize, I learned how now to be myself on stage and not to pretend to try to be somebody else, myself only bigger because it's still a performance. So now I also coach people. Anyway, by leaving Avon and starting to work on business meetings for other companies, so agencies would hire me and as part of a team, and we'd make our pitch. And typically we would write a song for the meeting of the company. So for example, if a company was bringing together two different departments, and maybe these departments had been enemies or competitors, but now the company needed to establish them together. So a creative director, which I've also functioned as, might come up with a meeting theme, better together. And so the meeting might open with a video of things that are better together, ham and eggs. And then I, as the writer, would write the script. And maybe there would be a song that would also illustrate better together. And maybe it would be, let's say, a black man and a white woman. They're each terrific vocalists. You hear them separately. Wow, they're really good. But then they do a duet that I would write the words for, the lyrics, and you'd realize, wow, they're better together. So all throughout the meeting that way, I'd weave the theme into the presentations and coach the executives on how to deliver them. And the task really is to, when Johnson & Johnson, for example, would call me in for a product launch, the task would be to make each person contribute their piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So marketing has a marketing message, sales has a sales message, manufacturing, and so on. But they all have to be consistent, even though they're individual. And, I have the skill, thankfully, to create the presentations that do that. And what happened was then I realized when I was coming back from a meeting with a composer that I had worked with, we wrote a theme song for this company's meeting. And I realized on the drive back from New Jersey, it was a pharmaceutical company, a lot of them are in New Jersey, was, gee whiz, this is so much fun writing songs. Why don't we keep on writing songs for business, but why don't we start writing songs for the public? So his name was Paul Gazzone. We agreed to do that, and we started, and now I have a song plugger in the country music in Nashville, and I've gotten to write a whole bunch of songs in a bunch of different genres.
That is amazing. And since we're on the subject of songwriters, music, and everything else, who are some of your favorite artists, singers, musicians, and songwriters growing up?
Gosh, well, Adele is somebody who immediately comes to mind, but Tim McGraw. I mean, I'm not just limited to one genre. The reason it's a hard question is because I love songs so much. There's like 1,000 of them competing, wanting to be in my head and coming out of my mouth right now. But what I really care about is that a song has a point, has a message. The same thing is true about a speech. So what does the song stand for? What is its message? And everything, whether it's a speech or a song, needs to unite to drive home the point into the minds of the audience, because human beings today, I've seen the research on this, we have shorter attention spans than goldfish now. This started in the 80s because they were doing music videos. That was a big new thing. Oh, only 3 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes. But now with the internet, that you can get something online in just seconds, our attention spans are shorter than ever. And what that means for communication, whether it's a song, a speech, a PowerPoint, a book, whatever it is I'm asked to write, you have to always keep in mind, what is the takeaway message? And then everything, if you try to do too much, for example, I bet you've seen PowerPoint slides that have way too many numbers and charts on them. That's not the way to do it. You have to, each piece of communication has to stand for one thing. And then if you're the speaker, fine, you're adding to it, but the audience can see on the screen behind you the main message. Well, the same thing is true about a song. What is its point of view? Any communication really needs to have a clear point of view, song, speech, whatever it is, and then make sure that all the pieces drive that home, following the North Star of your intended takeaway message.
And also, we'll talk about some of your songs in just a minute, but first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention The Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take The Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here, former Fortune 500 VP, executive, writer, trainer, motivational speaker, and songwriter Mike Greenlee here on The Mike Wagner Show. And let's talk about some of the songs you had. You had 11 songs that made the Billboard charts. 4 of them went number 1, and we'll also talk about a couple of things like I See You by Grant Malloy Smith, also a little bit of Masterpiece Living and Common Ground. And first of all, tell us how you exactly got into songwriting, and how did the record companies come to you for writing dance hits? So let's talk about your music career.
Well, the record companies don't come to me. You have to go to the record companies, and you have to have the product that they're looking for. And as a matter of fact, there's an article in a magazine that Grant Malloy Smith, who sings I See You, which is on the Grammy ballot right now for Best American Roots Song. Well, Grant co-founded a networking group all across the country for songwriters and musicians and artists. It's called the Indie Collaborative. Mm-hmm. So independent artists who collaborate. And the magazine has just launched the organization has just launched its first magazine. And I was asked to contribute an article in it that explains, well, how do you get on the Billboard dance chart? And the answer is, it takes a lot of investment. You have to start with one song to begin with, but then you have to realize that when it comes to dance clubs, there's a lot of different styles. Some people go to a dance club that's very hot and fast. Others want music that's more mellow. And the point is, if you're going to be on the Billboard dance club chart, then you need, they're called reporting DJs who are at these different clubs. You need reporters to tell Billboard, yes, I played Mike Greenlee's song this past week. And if enough of the DJs do that, then you rise up on the charts. Well, the only way that happens is if you create a remix for the different styles of DJs. So I'm sorry to see CDs disappearing as a format. I love CDs, but anybody who gets a copy of one of my dance songs on CD will notice on the back, gosh, it's the same one song, but there's 10 different versions. Yes, because they're for 10 different styles of clubs. And that's what happens is you hire a promoter. This is all in the article. You hire a promoter who goes to the different DJs who are reporting to Billboard and says, have you heard this song by Mike Greenlee? Try it. And then if enough of them do that, you rise on the charts. And I'm lucky to have had 4 number ones as a result of that.
What do you think is your famous number one that you had?
Well, My Fire is an example of a song. And I don't know if you know who Nile Rodgers is, but he's a music icon. Mm-hmm. And he collaborates with Kimberly Davis, who is the singer on My Fire. And what's wonderful was to be able to get a legend like Nile Rodgers to actually play guitar on one of my songs. Come on. Wow. Yeah, so I'm really proud of it. I got a bunch of those CDs that I'll probably have forever, but I'm very happy to have them. And the point is really, it's just like a speech. You know, when I say to a client, if I'm writing a speech, I'm going to help you sound like you, only better. That means each speech has to sound differently. They don't want to sound like Mike Greenley. They have to sound like themselves. Well, the same thing is true when I'm writing a song for an artist, because it was more than Kimberly Davis, a number of artists, several artists that I've created multiple hits with. What I do is the same process when I'm interviewing an executive about his or her message. I'll interview them and I'll listen. I'll pull things out of them. And that's how I hear, I can hear a song in there. So Kimberly Davis, for example, again, she was talking about her faith and her love life. And the result was a song called With You, which is, I can be better with you, meaning with you, my love, or with you, God. And I wouldn't have thought of that idea if it weren't for interviewing her, having the skill of interviewing somebody and finding because you've got that in spades, and finding out what's on their head, and then hearing a song idea from that, and then writing it. But everything I do is collaborative. If I could compose, if I could sing as well as words, I'd be dangerous. But all I've got is words. So everything I do is collaborative with other artists.
Mm-hmm. And I love to see some of your works as well, too. So maybe after this, we're going to put you on assignment on cranking out as many songs as possible. And let's put it out there. After all, it is the internet. So, well, of course, you know, speaking of great songs, you also helped write the song Our Great Virginia. And you just tell us about that. I mean, I read that. I went, wow, that is fascinating. Our Great Virginia. Let's talk about that.
Sure. I wish my father were still on this earth, because he would be bragging to his friends, there are only 50 states, and my son wrote the anthem of one of them. But the way it came about is there was a wonderful history professor, James Bud Robertson, who lived in Virginia. His wife also is very accomplished, former principal. And the two of them knew that Virginia didn't have a state song. You know that most states still do have a state song, at least one. There's still a few that don't. Well, Virginia didn't. And the reason it didn't was because they had a song in the 80s that got canned. Now, being a Southern gentleman raised in Beaufort, South Carolina, we don't say canned, that we say it was retired. And it became the state song emeritus. Bye-bye. But it was gone. And the reason is, that song, maybe you've heard of it, is Carry Me Back to Old Virginia. Uh-huh. And think about it. It's about a slave who loved picking cotton so much in Virginia, he just wanted to go back into those fields. No, it don't work that way in the 80s anymore. Mm-hmm. So they got rid of it. Virginia was without a state song for decades. And then when the Robertsons called me, and they'd heard about me as a lyricist, and asked, could I write the lyrics for what they would want to be the state song? And Bud had picked a classic American folk song called O Shenandoah. And what was good about that is, first of all, it's a proven melody. It relates to Virginia, the Shenandoah River, the Shenandoah Valley. And I didn't even need to work with a fresh composer. I had the melody. Now, believe me, Shenandoah is not an easy word to rhyme with, but nonetheless, I was able to create the words for Our Great Virginia. And then there were other people who were trying, word got out. So other people realized we should be trying to write a state song too. And there were a couple that managed to make it. Mine is the official traditional state song. So if you go to a funeral or you go to an induction of the new governor of Virginia, it'll be my song that you'll hear. But there's also now a state popular song. So if there's, a party in Virginia and they wanted to celebrate it, they might play that. That's cool with me. I'm just glad I got to write a state song. And
you did a great job of it as well, too. And you can say I'm one of the, 50 writers, having like a state song. And, of course, this brings us to some common ground that you talk about as well, too. Sharing Common Ground, which is, written by a current 3-term mayor of Beaufort, South Carolina, and shares an insightful perspective of a successful city. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so growing up in the South as I did, and I'm very open about, especially with all that training as a therapist, I'm a guy now who says what he means and means what he says. I've been called the most earnest person on the eastern seaboard, and I'm a little offended. Why are they limiting my geography just to the eastern seaboard? But the fact is, you can always count on me to tell the truth. Now, I wasn't that way growing up because in Beaufort, South Carolina back then, where Billy Kaiserling is the mayor today, he was a sort of a boyhood friend of mine then, I was taunted as the dirty Jew boy. This was a small town. And so the pecking order was Southern Baptist, then Methodist, then Episcopalian. There was negative prejudice against Catholics. Jews were even lower, and blacks were lower than that. So I had swastikas as a child, as a boy, carved into my locker, people telling me, "Die, dirty Jew boy," that kind of thing. And as a result, I decided to make things worse, harder for me. I have no mechanical skills, but I know from my dad, who was a psychologist, that I have a high IQ. Well, it was too high because I was finishing the assignment in second grade too fast, and I was getting restless. And so they thought it was a behavior problem. Then they gave me a test and realized the problem was I was finishing the homework too fast. So they moved me into the third grade. That was a nice compliment, but it made me even more different. I was the Jew boy who was also the young geek. So in high school, I determined I'm going to be popular. And I became the editor of my high school yearbook, and I edited it. I was voted most popular. Oh, that was great, except it wasn't I who was most popular. It was the shapeshifter. If you're a Republican, I'm a Republican. If you're a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. And it wasn't me. But I was glad to get the title. However, at Duke University, where I got an Andrew B. Duke scholarship, had to keep deansless grades, they found that my anxiety was getting in the way of my studies. They gave me an IQ test, and again, they said, you shouldn't have any problem with this. But they gave me a personality test, and they said, it's your anxiety that's getting in the way of the studies. And so get into psychotherapy. And finally, I had somebody who would tell me, you're not a terrible, dirty Jew boy. You're a good human being. And with somebody on my side, I didn't just graduate Dean's List, I graduated Phi Beta Kappa.
Nice.
And then they said, boy, you've begun to look at yourself, go to New York City and continue. So I did, which is how I got the training to think I was going to be a psychotherapist. So that's how I got to New York. Were you asking me, though, about songs per se? I'm not sure where...
I think it was songs per se, and I'm trying to remember where I was going with, like, say, with some of the songs that you wrote, some of the songs went number one, or we can probably get in some, I know what it was. Music, yes.
I know what it was. It was about Common Ground.
Common Ground, yes, that's it.
So Common Ground is a song that expresses my wish, really, for all of us. That one of the lines in the song is, everyone is different, all of us are equal. Can't we find some common ground? And I feel like that's a message that was relevant all my life, but it feels especially relevant now with Black Lives Matter on one side and Antifa on the other. And Mayor Billy Kaiserling in Beaufort, it's his third term now as mayor, and he's been a very successful mayor, but he wants to give back, to do more. So he was inspired by my song, and he asked me to co-write a book with him called Sharing Common Ground. And what it's about is, I think it's going to be one of the most important things I've ever done, to be honest with you. So in American history, right after the Civil War, we had a period of time which we call now Reconstruction. It was about bringing the North and the South back together again. But what happened is all these black African-American slaves who'd been brought over against their will, now they were free. And the fact is, they had a lot of skills and intelligence and abilities that they brought over from Africa. They had not been allowed to use them. They were servicing the master. But now they were free, and they accomplished a lot. And Mayor Billy Kaiserling's point is, a lot of their accomplishments that show us, frankly, that black people are equal to white people, that all human beings, have value, they're not being taught very much in the schools these days. So the point of the purpose of the book is to bring attention, because after Reconstruction came Jim Crow and there was segregation, and in Beaufort, South Carolina, black people had to climb up to the top of the movie theater. As a white person, I was sitting downstairs. So Billy Kaiserling's point in Sharing Common Ground is to get our schools to teach more about the fantastic, really, achievements of formerly freed slaves, to change our understanding of what everybody can do. It's about common ground and sharing common ground. So I'm proud of to be part of it. I think it can have a positive effect on racism in our country, which is a waste of energy as far as I'm concerned, racism. And I think this book will turn out to be really important. And I'm honored that my song helped inspire doing it.
Mm-hmm. And once again, I See You is on the Grammy ballot. And once again, just a quick run. And where can we find the song I See You along with Common Ground?
So I See You came from Grant Malloy Smith, and the genre is American roots. It's sort of a cross between country and folk. And he was out touring, and he heard a woman in her, I guess she was in her 80s, saying to friends, Grant just happened to hear her, that she felt invisible because of her age. Now, I personally have experienced ageism, people deciding before they knew anything about me, oh, he's too young to be able to do this, and others deciding, oh, he's too old to be able to do this later in life, as opposed to judging people for who they actually are. And so he wanted this woman to, and anybody who's an older person, you're too young perhaps to have experienced ageism, but I know what it feels like. Mm-hmm. He wanted her to know that she's not invisible and that she has value, and that we know that she has value. So he came up with the title, I See You, meaning you're not invisible. And so I wrote the words, Grant performs it. It's in the American roots genre. And what's amazing is that a company called Masterpiece Living that deals with healthy aging. There are people who believe that old people should be pretty much discarded, and some old people, unfortunately, feel that way about themselves. But Masterpiece Living's mission is to help older people and help society realize the value that still exists in anybody who's fine. If they're 85, think about what they've been through and learn from it, as opposed to just discarding them. So what's beautiful to me is that Masterpiece Living, which deals with aging all around the country, has chosen my song and Grant's song as the theme for a new anti-ageism campaign to come out in 2021. And I'm just as proud as I can be that all I've got is words, but that maybe my words will help diminish prejudice and help improve the quality of life for older people and for younger people.
Mm-hmm. And that's very important as well, too. And how can people find out about Masterpiece Living?
Oh, they're online. That's a great question. So it's mymasterpieceliving.com. They're online. And I would just say that anybody who wants to check out the song on YouTube, you can put in quotes, I see SEEU and video, and they'll be able to hear it and see it. And what's wonderful is that Masterpiece Living is going to use the song and its message around the country to help younger people and older people get past this prejudice. And again, my dad and my mom, they would be so proud, but they've also, surely they experienced ageism too. And because I'm against prejudice, I wrote a song, for example, called Love Your Own Power. And it's a women's empowerment song, and it's won some awards. So I feel like, fine, I can barely change a light bulb. I'll hurt myself if I try to hang a picture on the wall, but at least I've got words, and at least I can use them for good. And I have to say, if I See You, which is on the American Roots Grammy ballot, even if it just got a nomination, forget about winning, I would feel like that would bring attention to the song and therefore to the cause. And it would be a dream come true for me.
That would be a dream come true. And I love what you had to say about I See You as well, too. And where can we find Common Ground and your book, Sharing Common Ground? Where can we find that?
Okay, so Sharing Common Ground is just being published. It's not, but it will be available at Amazon in, let's say, another 3 weeks. Right now, it's already available in digital format, Sharing Common Ground. And online, you can hear the song Common Ground as well as I See You. You have to know when you go online, if you want a title, you put it in quotes so that Google knows, okay, they're looking for that exact combination of words. And if somebody were to search in quotes, I see you, or common ground, and then the plus sign, Mike Greenlee, the color green LY, they'll see the video and be able to hum along to it.
That sounds great. We're looking forward to that. And once again, we're with Mike Greenlee, writer, trainer, motivational speaker, and songwriter here on the Mike Wagner Show. And what can we expect from you in 2021 and beyond, Mike?
Well, I'm always writing, and there's a new song I'm excited by called "You're the One," and it's written with his artist name is Dubshine. He does the music, and Deborah Magoni is the artist. And "You're the One" is a straight up love song, but it's in a dance genre. And we already have 3 or 4 other songs in the pipeline. I mean, I'm just happy if I can keep typing and talking and making a difference in the world. So there are going to be some new songs coming out from me, and I look forward to sharing them with you.
And I can imagine having a song, that's being typed out on your little computer. I can feel it right now, and feel free to send it here. So, and who do you consider biggest influence in your career, Mike?
The biggest influence in my career? That's interesting. Well, my mother was as tenacious as she could possibly be. And I'm going to say my parents, but I want to just paint a quick picture. So for my mother, the glass was not only always half empty, but it was cracked and leaking. And for my father, see, they were a wonderful couple. The glass was not just half full, it was overflowing. So they were opposites who attracted.
I never heard that. Overflowing, cracked, and leaking. I'm going to have to start changing that. I love it.
So I think it was a blessing for me looking back that I had parents on both ends of the spectrum, and yet they both had such strong work ethic that it inspired me. I want to mention one other song because I know I wouldn't have written it if it weren't for my mom. The song is called Always My Angel, and I was asked to contribute lyrics. If you remember Sandy Hook Elementary School, when those kids were murdered by a deranged gunman.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, my gosh.
So this wonderful composer in the choral world, Jim Popoulas, the music department of that school, it was a tragedy, to put it mildly. And they wanted to commemorate these lost lives. So Jim called me. We've created choral music. It's not just Billboard hits that I've done, but choral music. And Jim actually did the arrangement for Our Great Virginia, which can be sung by choirs and was sung by a bunch of Miss Virginia contestants, as a matter of fact.
Oh, amazing.
So Jim called and said that the music department had asked him, could he write a song in memory of those lost lives? And the idea he had, it often happens that a composer or an artist will give me an idea and then I'll write words for it. The idea, he said, was, can you write something about that the kids are gone, teachers too, they're gone, but they're only gone from this earth. They're still angels. And the result is the song Always My Angel, and it's coming out right now in sheet music. And I'm just excited because it'll be another way. When I hear an executive deliver words that I wrote for him or her to help them sound like their best selves, if I'm in the audience, I'm just proud as can be of how they're using my little contribution of the words and making it shine. Well, the same thing is true when I hear an artist or a choir singing songs of mine. So it's going to be a pleasure to me to hear Always My Angel. And when I hear it, I hear my mother, actually, because she's always my angel, and she was the writer of the family, and that was my inspiration, I think.
Oh, that is so beautiful. That's just amazing. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point, Mike?
The best advice
you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, I would say be true to yourself, be authentic. One of the big ahas that I had in learning how to overcome stage fright. Stage fright is really crippling for people. And just so you know, I've seen the statistics. So I happen to have a low threshold of pain. When I go to the dentist, I'll tease him. I've been seeing him for years. I'll still say, I want the best Novocaine you got. But something like,
I remember those days.
but something like 6% of the population would rather have a dentist drill on them with no Novocaine than to have to stand up in front of an audience. That's how terrified some people are.
Wow.
And something like 4.5% would rather die.
Ooh.
Well, it used to be impossible for me to be on stage because I was so nervous. And now you know my story. I grew up not feeling any self-worth. But the big aha I had was not to try. There was a guy who was a very dynamic vice president. When I was made the vice president, I was on the executive floor. He was too. But he would stride across the stage. He was a big extrovert. That's not who I am as the most earnest person on the Eastern Seaboard. I'm sincere. I'm in touch with feelings. And so the big liberating aha I had, which gets back to the advice, and I use it whenever I speech coach, don't try to be somebody else. Learn who you are, and then make the most of your own genuine assets. Be the best you can be. So I no longer, that big aha was, I no longer tried to imitate Ed Carter. I couldn't do that. I was going to be the best Mike Greenlee I could be. So I told a story of how Avon had touched me on my second week, they sent me to Iowa. I'd never been to Iowa, and I got to see how my company had changed people's lives. The first I went direct selling myself. Now, I'm an introvert. So to go ding dong, Avon calling, it was the whole day, one lady bought one lipstick. And then I went out with the representative, and it was astonishing, which was such a smart orientation program, because she was fantastic. And her customers were looking forward to her being there. And when I talked to her afterward, I said, how did you get to be this way? And she said, it was my district manager. And Avon, your new company, Mike Greenlee, changed my life. And it's because my district manager gave me the training which I hadn't received in my orientation, which was why it was so smart, because they let me know what it would feel like if I didn't have Avon behind me. And she said we had changed her life. And now her husband, this is decades ago, it's in Iowa. Her husband was a factory worker. She was bringing in as much money as he was. So he had a different kind of respect for her. Her kids looked up to her in a way that they hadn't before. Look at what mommy can do. And most of all, she said, thanks to the training of her district manager, she had a respect for and appreciation of herself that she never had before joining the company. So when now I was back on stage and I knew that this gallivanting guy across the stage would do his thing, but that's not me, I told the story of how genuinely touched I had been. And I was telling it to the district managers about the difference that they make in people's lives. And now giving a speech is a performance, even though you have to be authentic. And I let my voice choke up a little bit as I recall the real feelings. I heard sniffles all around the room. And afterward, they told me it was the best speech they'd ever heard. So introverted, stage fright-ridden Mike Greenlee had just given the best speech that Avon managers had ever heard. Well, I got that, which is back to the advice, by not trying to be somebody else, but by figuring out what's my best self. Let me leverage that and offer that.
Wow. I'm speechless on that one, literally. And
I kind of doubt that you're ever speechless, but okay.
Right. And think about the dentist, how you say you're able to go to the dentist and be on the stage. At least the dentist tell the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. They're pretty honest about it. So
there you go.
Once again, writer, trainer, motivational speaker, and former 500 Vice President, songwriter Mike Greenlee here on the Mike Wagner Show. Mike, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again really soon. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects, what's your website, how do people contact you, where can people check out your books, check out your music, and check out everything else.
Well, MikeGreenlee.com. So it's Mike, the color green, L-Y.com. My mother would always say, it's not L-E-Y, it's just Mike Green, L-Y. But that's my website. You can always communicate to me that way. And I just love doing what I do, and I love using my skill to be of value to others, whether it's a song or that they enjoy, or whether it's a client who hires me. It just, as long as I've got words, I'm going to try to use them for good. And boy, it's been a pleasure being on your show. I can see why your show is so popular. You're really fluid at what you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I've been doing it for years, and looking forward to having soon. Once again, Mike, a very big thank you for your time. You've been just terrific. Looking forward to having you again real soon. And do me a favor, do us a favor, keep us up to date. We definitely want you back.
Thanks so much.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, Custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.